So some multi-axis mill enhancements. In the advanced rotary tool path, they added adaptive depth steps. So that's going to be an option in your cut parameters page. And the nice thing about that is now we can, instead of a standard step down where we may be missing some flats on the part, now we can give it a distance, but then we can tell it a minimum distance. So if it sees a flat in that range, it will go ahead and put a cut on there and respect what you're leaving on the floors. So that's a nice little enhancement there. Another enhancement for the morph, parallel, and along curve tool path is going to be common direction. And that's going to be in the tool axis control, so it's going to kind of try to control the direction you're cutting. You'll have a couple options there. Is on all contours, so it looks at all the contour lines, and it's going to try to pick the best direction to go about it, or on a single contour. So it'll pick each individual curve, and it'll put a cut along that curve. So these are something you'll just have to kind of test on some of your parts and see if these options can help you at all. Feed rate. They give us a feed rate percentage on the entry and exit now, which is nice. We didn't have that option before, and this will be on the curve, flow, multi-surface, port, and rotary tool paths. You'll see them options in. Morph, they did some big changes here. Now we can extend the edge curves of a morph. So the curves that we picked to morph in between, now we can extend them out. And this is going to really help out these tool paths and the ends where they come up to the curves. And, you know, kind of the picture there, the first one was an older tool path. Then we started to refine it out to extend the edge curves, and then it refines the tool paths quite nicely. So we will see that today on a morph tool path. And here's the extend edge curves on the left, not an option, and extend edge curves on as the option here, and you can see how much better that tool path does look. Absolutely, for sure here. And the main deal here is the red lines on the screen. They don't match, so we got a kind of a falling off effect on the left. And if we can extend them out and match them, now it sees them all even, so it gives us a lot better cut there. So that's a good feature. So let's go ahead and we're going to take a look at approximate and exact mode to start here. And this is kind of what I'm after. If we have a part shaped like this, there's a few things we ran into with bad cuts, rolling the tops of the edges. So there's quite a few instances where we'd have some bad cuts in here, and we'll take a look at some new options in 2021 that have pretty much fixed this and really enhanced this to make these tool paths really work nice. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at a part here. And this part that I have is the same part we've been working on with some of the other sections. And we're just going to segregate out just these surfaces here. So we're going to take a look at this. So we're going to do a multi-axis finish tool path on this. And usually what we get here is we get a lot of jumping around with the tool path, or we may not get you know, our step overs to be exactly what we want. So what I'm going to start here is I'm just going to do a parallel tool path. I'm just going to have a lollipop cutter in this case. In my cut pattern, I'm going to go parallel to a curve. So I'm going to go ahead and pick this red curve, for instance, here. And I'm going to pick my drive surfaces. So I'm just going to pick these two surfaces right here. Okay, we're just going to do this one to take a look at one enhancement here. I'm not really going to change a whole lot here. Tool axis control we'll leave. Collision control, I'll just turn it off for now. And I'm just going to really green check out of here and get a tool path. So I really didn't get too bad of a tool path. It's parallel to my curve that I did pick on the end here. But one thing you'll notice is my curve starts here and ends here. So as that echoes out, it starts to curl around. So do you see the curling effect here? And really what that is that's how the tool path works. Now, I'll show you why. So if I come back in here and I go to my wireframe, I'm just going to do an offset, and I'm going to do an offset on this red line. And I actually just created a slot to match one of them. So really, if you look at this, this is how that toolpath is working. It's echoing out, and you see how it rolls around and kind of follows that slot shape. So out towards the top here, it starts to curl out. If these were higher, it would curl even more, depending on how far it would get up on this pink curve. So that's kind of why that toolpath does that, and some people don't like that. Some instances that doesn't look the best or cut the best. So what we can do here is we can come in back into our parameters of the parallel toolpath. And inside here, there's going to be a few options here. And in cut parameters, there's advanced options for surface quality. And there's parameters for surface edge handling. In here, there's a new option. It's called extend edge curve. So what that'll do is it'll extend that curve that I picked, that red curve, up so it's even, so my tops of my toolpaths don't tip or roll. So if I just turn that one on and green check and regenerate, we'll see that my toolpath looks that much better. See how nice and flat them are now? Straight up and down, straight up and down. So I'm getting a lot better surface finish quality on there. You know, and that helps out a lot. That's a lot better cut. So it's very basic, very simple to use. It's a new option here. It's called Extend Edge Curve in the Parallel for Surface Edge Handling option. So I'm going to go ahead and, you know, maybe we should go ahead and select the whole part, see what we get here. So I'm going to go back into my cut parameters page, and I'm just going to go pick the rest of these surfaces. And I'm just going to regenerate. And now I get a bunch of stuff going all over the place here. So this is kind of a standard issue here. So if we go ahead and backplot this thing, you're going to see this thing go all sorts of directions now that I have picked multiple surfaces. And I'm still trying to morph about that red curve that I picked initially. And why are we getting that? You know, and a lot of people don't understand how this is working. So as this works around, it's going all different directions. Really a terrible cut there. So why we're getting this here, so if I go ahead and I'm going to just do a surface revolve just to kind of show you here. So I'm going to pick this, and I'm going to pick that, okay? So what I did here is I got a cylinder on here. So let me go ahead and turn the colors. So now the way this works is my curve is in the middle. So my red is in the middle of this. And the way this looks at this is really like a donut. So when it's cutting around here, it's working around this shape. So that's why we're getting all these weird cuts in there, because it's kind of working around that revolved shape that we have there as kind of an example. You got to kind of look at it as a donut. It's cutting around there. So that's why you're getting all these rotations around both sides of the part. You can kind of see it snapping all the way around because it's trying to maintain that. So we do have another option in here to fix situations like this. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of these curves that we don't need. And I'm going to come back into this tool path. Now, as far as some of the options here for this fix here that they add in 2021 is it's once again going to be in cut parameters, and it's advanced option for surface quality. Now, a method that we have up here is approximate, or the new one we have is exact. So if I go to exact mode, and just by flipping that and regenerating this and backplotting it, now we're going to see a lot better cut. Now watch that cut. Just by going to exact mode, that has essentially fixed my whole tool path of where I was seeing issues before. So now that tool path can work its way around there correctly. Still, you know, going parallel to the curve that I picked, but now just going to an exact mode. So it's a lot cleaner tool path. I mean, that's quite a change just by one switch in 2021 to go to exact mode. It's kind of huge and how that fixed it. Now we could take a look at this cut also in morph. So if I come up and do a morph toolpath, this option is in morph also. So same tool, cut pattern, I'm just going to pattern it from the red. We'll go to the blue here. So we're morphing between the two. And I'm going to pick all my surfaces here. I'm just going to leave everything pretty much the same, and I'm just going to green check out of here. And now we're getting this nice fine cut here. So this thing's all over the map again, not really giving us much for a good cut. There it goes. It started off fine, and now it's pretty much lost its mind. It's going all over the place here. We're not getting a cut worth the darn here at all. So we have the same option in here in morph to fix a situation like that. So if I come back into the parameters, once again we have our advanced options here. And under cut pattern, once again, we have the advanced option for surface quality, approximate, or exact mode. Exact mode, once again, is the addition in 2021. If I go to exact, green check, and regenerate, now look at my nice tool path, that nice morph tool path. So now it starts here, and it's going to morph around in exact mode. I could have done the same on the inside if I was getting skewed cuts or needed to cut the inside of the part. Exact mode works for that also. So definitely when you're using the parallel and morph tool paths, if you guys run into a situation where your cut looks awful like we were seeing on here, try out the exact mode and see if it fixes it. It should. And keep in mind that other change also that we did with the parallel tool path, where it was extending our curves, pretty much this red line up. It was extending it to the ends of our cuts, so we weren't getting a rollover on top. So a couple big changes there for these tool paths to really help them out. So definitely take a look at them and see if they help you out on your next project there. Next section here we're going to take a look at is the extend edge curves in a morph. So we're going to look at another part here and look at some extensions and then see how these can help us in the morph tool path. So I've kind of showed you this picture previous, and this is what we're specifically going to talk about when we have a morph 5-axis tool path and we're morphing between this red curve to this red curve. We'll see if they're not even, they drop off, and our tool paths get really kind of terrible on the ends here unless we extend them out manually. Now we have the extend edge curve option. So we can extend these out. So it takes this curve here and this curve here and extends it out to this edge here, so we get nice morphing in between the two curves. Let's go ahead and take a look at this on a part I have. So if I go to my right view here, we're going to do a morph on the red here first. So I'm just going to create a morph tool path. And I'm going to go grab my cut pattern. It's going to be from the red and to the red lower one. And I'm just going to pick my surface that I want them to morph on. Now right out of the get-go here, I'm just going to green check and see what we get. So we can see that we're getting our drop down here. It's not too great, kind of rolling around the corners. So we're not getting nice straight motion there. So we can fix that. And we kind of seen it earlier, but I just want to give you another example of this. So under the cut parameters, there's parameters for surface edge handling. Once again, I can extend the edge curve. This is the 2021 option. So now if I green check out of there, now look at my nice flows on that. So now they're straight across. So it extended this line over to here, extended this line over to here, and now they can morph pretty much straight up and down. The echo is even that way. So that's kind of a nice little enhancement there. I'm going to do another morph on the top section here, so I'm just going to take this one and change around some parameters here. I'm going to go repick my curves to the blue one here. So we're going to curve that one to this one and to a surface here. Now once again, if I come back in here and turn that off, you're going to see that we get the results that we would think here. It's kind of rolling off, morphing from here to here. Well, over here is a surface, so it has to try to do something with that. And it looks pretty terrible there. It's really a bad cut on these ends. Once again, same situation here. I can come in here to my parameters for surface edge handling, turn on extend edge curves, regenerate this, and now I get some nice flows along there for our tool path, nice back and forth motion along our curves. Now, what if I wanted to extend past this cut a little bit? Maybe I didn't want to do my transition there. We have another option in here, and it shows well on this situation here. In the cut pattern, what we have here is extend and trim. So now I can come to my extend and trim, and there's going to be another box that, or option that pops up here called extend trim. So I can give it a value, a diameter of a tool or a value. So I'm in metric, so maybe I want to go 5 millimeters past tangential on both sides. And we can green check, regenerate, and now it goes past. So I don't have to worry about extending them curves past. Once again, whatever curves you have on there, you can utilize now. You don't have to do the construction on it. So now this is going to start here and work its way back and forth in a pretty nice pattern here. Extending past, so it's getting past them edges if I don't want no transitional moves on them edges. Now, one thing that we do notice here is we got a little bit of collision here. It's looking like it's dropping through here, maybe into that floor. So we could also come into here, obviously, and this hasn't changed. We could come into our collision control page, and we could maybe pick some check surfaces this time, maybe there, and maybe these two, and these two. And now that'll trim and relink the tool path. And now, we're not finishing it out all the way. We could do some work there to get that to work out, but that would be an option. If we do use extension to get around a collision, is to use our collision control at that point. So mainly the two options I wanted to discuss there were extend the edge curves and extend our cut if we wanted to, and both of them reside in the parameters. One is in the cut pattern page right here, with your secondary option there to control it. And then the other one is the parameters for surface edge handling is right there. So once again, just another example along with extensions and morph to take a look at. A couple more good options there for you, so make sure you're taking a look at them. Next, we'll talk about another multi-axis mill enhancement. This is a brand new tool path in the multi-axis tool paths, and it is called 3+2 Auto. So it has automatic in the tool path now. That can send people the wrong direction here. It has its limitations. It's brand new, so they're going to tune on this, continually tune on this a little bit. And we're going to go over the scenarios of is automatic really that great? And we just want to make sure that we're not overachieving any of our expectations. So let's set some expectations. So we've been telling everybody for years that dynamic motion is the best in the industry. It is. And that has not changed. Does 3+2 automatic use this industry-leading technology? No. It shows that it has dynamic in it, but it is not our dynamic motion. So, set your expectations accordingly. You're not going to get the exact same tool paths that you get with our dynamic. And we'll take a look at that and kind of see what we're talking about here. So I'm going to go ahead and go to a file here. In this file here, I have kind of prepped because it takes so long, not so long, but it does take a couple, 2-3 minutes to crunch, a couple minutes, 2-3 minutes to fire up and machine sim. So I kind of have this pre-built out for you. And we're going to take a look at it from the start. So I'm just going to look at the first toolpath here. The toolpath is in our multi-axis suite here. It's called 3+2 automatic roughing. So in that toolpath, it kind of looks just like our multi-axis toolpaths, except for a couple things on top here. In model geometry, this looks like our OptiRough, you know, where you can pick your machining geometry. You can pick multiple surfaces and leave different wall and floor stock if you want. And we also have avoidance geometry here, so anything we want to avoid, we can pick. And this all works exactly the same as any of our other Mastercam tool paths. In this case, I'm just going to grab a 12mm bullnose end mill. And stock. In this case here, you're going to want to set up your stock so it knows where the extents of the roughing should be. In this case here, we just have a stock model built of a square stock that we're going to use in here. You could use the other options in here also. Job setup would have worked here, or we could select some geometry if we had it on the screen. Cut parameters. So here's where our pattern starts. So over here we have a type. So we have offset is just going to offset the cuts like a normal pocket tool path. Parallel, we'll put the cuts parallel to an edge. And then we do have dynamic. Now once again, this is not my Mastercam dynamic. This is called dynamic motion, but it's not our Mastercam's dynamic motion. So we're going to use that. It isn't terrible. It's not bad. It's just not as good, I would say, as our dynamic. Depth steps. We have constant depth steps or number of slices. Number of slices would be how many depth cuts do I want, or I can say a constant depth step of 15 millimeters in this case. A lot of stuff on the bottom here looks a lot like our other tool paths in the multi-axis suites here. You have your cutting methods. Direction for one-way machining, your surface qualities, your step overs, max step over, desired step over, so it's going to go in between them two ranges there. Down here, there is a little bit of a change. The intermediate slices. This is kind of like OptiRough. If you look at this like OptiRough, where we step down heavy and then we do our step ups. Now what we can do here is kind of cool, is we can say after the last depth step or after each depth step. So Opti, it would do a heavy cut down, let's say 1 inch, and step up every time. We can't control that in the Opti. Well, here we can say, after the last depth step, then go ahead and start up. So it'll work very heavy down as far as it can and then work up, not necessarily on all your depth cuts. So that one is kind of a cool little option there. A lot of our other stuff here, is laid out. So here's another very important one in here. So we have modes for this. We have automatic, manual, and semi-automatic. We're going to look at all of them. We're going to see where these can be used and where they kind of fall off as far as use. We have search angle increments, so it looks at a 15-degree angles to see where it could get another cut if needed be, depending on how many different angles you have on your part. And we do have a max stock to leave. How much stock do you want to leave on each surface? This is a metric file, so it's 6.5 millimeters. And we're going to leave this one is set to automatic, so we can take a look at that. In collision control, there's not a whole lot here. How do you want to control your collisions, and how much room do you want around each one of your features here as far as holder, shank, and shoulder. So same as what we're used to there. Really no changes in here. Linking, all the same multi-axis linking that you're used to as far as how are we entering and Xing out of cuts. And then we do have a roughing page here. Now the only thing in roughing page is kind of the approach. We do have some options here as automatic. It'll figure out the best case scenario, do a line or helical. So we're just going to limit it to helical entries wherever it needs the helical in. And we'll go with that. The other parameters here, not a whole lot in here. So it's just standard stuff in a multi-axis tool path. Now, I want to take a look at this. So if I flip this on, you're going to see a bunch of stuff here. And what this will do, it's 3 plus 2. So if it needs to rotate to a new plane, it can rotate to a new plane. And the way it looks at it in automatic is it looks at your part and it builds the planes that it needs. So it looks at all the surfaces and says, do I need 4 planes? You know, to index 4 different sides of the part, it'll go ahead and do that. So when we go and back plot this, you know, you're going to see it start on the first stop here. Work on that side. It'll work that out as deep as it can. And then shortly here we should see a flip in there of the tool. And now here it's coming from the other side. So it indexed and now it's roughing from the other side. So it is a 3 plus 2. It'll automatically rotate as need be. And to kind of give you a little bit a better picture of automatic. Now this isn't the best case scenario. Automatic, everybody thinks that automatic, oh, it's going to do everything I want. Well, typically that's the last thing that it'll do. It's typically never like that. For anybody that's used the deburr toolpath, when it came out, it was an automatic toolpath also, and it didn't work that well until you start limiting it to more of a manual set, and then it works awesome. Now that took a little bit of tuning to get right, and now they have it nailed. It's one of the best toolpaths in there. So what I did here after automatic is I'm looking at this part, and I'm trying to rough this part out automatically. So I'm just kind of giving Mastercam all to say, saying, figure it out, give me my 3 plus 2 program. So if I look at the stock model after this cut, you'll see that it's not great. It's not great at all. So we're seeing a lot of material left over. This whole side really didn't get hit because we're kind of in an automatic mode. We're just kind of letting Mastercam say, however deep and far you can get, go ahead and do it. So really, this is kind of, it did something, but in a lot of cases, this is quite worthless to me. Just not a lot of say by me, and just allowing Mastercam to do a lot of the work. So it got me somewhere, not really desirable results there from automatic. So I'm going to go back, and all I did was copy these toolpaths down, and we're just going to look at the other options here. So if I come into my cut parameters, same thing here, nothing changed. I'm not going to change anything in here. Mainly in my linking, or I'm sorry, my tool axes control. Instead of going automatic, I'm going to go semi-automatic. So in this case here, what I did was I created a new plane. So in this white box here, these are the modes. Now for an automatic, it automatically builds the planes for us. So it automatically looks at the part and says, I'm going to put a plane here, 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 and here, and then it'll go and cut in that order. Now in semi-automatic, now I can right-click in this box here, and I can add, or I can select a tool plane. So if I go to select tool plane, now I have these options here. So I can go to top, front, side plane, isometric. I can go to a named plane, which will get me into my planes manager and allow me to pick a plane out of there. I can go from G-view, geometry, solid face, dynamic. So I have a lot of options here to pick planes. Now in this case here, we dumped another plane on here, and I believe, if I can remember right, I believe it was this face right here that we built a plane on. So I'm going to go back to my toolpath here. And this one here, it added, but I didn't want one, so I'm just going to remove that one out of there. And now this is semi-automatic, like I was saying. So this is just kind of a plane that I added. So I just added a plane to one of the sides. So let's see what this looks like. Exact same toolpath. I just added a plane here to look at. One thing about this toolpath is I can't go ahead and view that plane. Hopefully they'll someday enhance that, so it makes it a little tricky. So now I'm going to go ahead and I get a little different look now that I'm semi-automatic. And the plane that I pick, it'll utilize that one as preference also. So we're getting a completely kind of different looking cut here. A lot of retracts. And if I go ahead and look at the stock model from that second op, now I'm getting a little better. So a lot of more material came out of there than previous, right? We got these windows cut out, that big hunk of material's not there because I set a plane on this face here and it utilized that plane. So I'm able to manually go in here and override any automatic function and say use a plane from this face, the other face, all the way around that part, and it'll make sure it goes to each one of them planes and puts a cut on them. So there's the second cut. And then the third cut here will be fully manual. So I set to manual, and I use my options in here to create planes all the way around. So the planes, you know, there's no names in here. I wish there was names in here too. So I believe they're going to enhance this. But what pretty much I have here is this is a top plane. I have a front face. I have a left side, a right side, and a back face. So pretty much I manually define planes around the part. And we can come back to this. I just want to show you this first. Exact same toolpath, just changed to manual with planes created there. So if I come back out of here and look at stock model 3 after that op, now we're going to be looking pretty darn nice. Now I had to go to manual mode to get this, but that ain't terrible. You know, there's a lot of material roughed out of there, and this can be, I think this can be useful, you know, as far as how far I got. And this is a pretty quick way to make planes. You know, we could have done OptiRough on this too. They're kind of neck and neck depending on what you're doing and what you need to do. You know, your results aren't going to be as good of an Opti, but in this case here, we can kind of automate our planes creation or let Mastercam do it if it's going to be good enough. So if I come back into here, I'm going to turn this off and I'm going to go back to my automatic planes. And I'm just going to remove pretty much all of these here. And I'm going to have to do them one at a time here. And I'm going to leave the first one in there. Let's remove it. So I'm going to select the tool plane, and I'm going to say, give me a plane at the top. So I'm just going to say top. Gives me a plane there. I'm going to right-click, select tool plane, and I say go to the front. Puts a tool plane on the front of the part for me automatically. It's building these as we go. I could go, let's go to a named plane. So we'll go to the left plane. I'm going to go to another named plane, and I'm going to go to the right plane. And I'm going to go to another plane, and I'm going to go to another named plane, and I'm going to go to the right plane. So pretty much I have all sides hit. Top, front, back, left, right. And I manually define them. So now it's going to try to go in them orders that them planes were built. Well, if I green check out of there, and we will crunch this one out. Now this is going to crunch, and then we'll get our cut using all of our manual planes that we made right inside the tool path. One nice thing about these tool paths is the linking is awesome in them. So the linking to get around the part is excellent. As far as getting that tool to rotate around them parts tight, they did a very, very good job with that linking parameters on these. That is kind of an automatic in this tool path. So, I mean, the main thing here is, does it give you the control of an OptiRough? No. Is it possible that you're not going to get desired results out of automatic? More than likely. If you get close enough automatically, good for you. That's great. It's easy to program, as we see. Just pick the part, and you can let it go to automatic, and it pretty much automatically will do the tool path. And if you want more control, then we have semi-automatic and automatic. So if you have a part, you know, that's kind of simple, maybe we can go to semi-automatic and maybe just define a certain plane that we want that tool to rough from. And we could have it pick the rest of the planes automatically if we wanted to, or we have full manual mode, kind of like what we did here. We'll see where that's at. And she's got quite a ways to go here, so I'm probably not going to wait for that. It's getting there. We'll take a look at it here. And these do take a little bit of time to crunch. You know, there's quite a bit going on here, so a lot of roughing. And it's almost done. You know, and this is brand new. So any feedback you guys can give us, if you're using it, we want it. That's the only way they can get better. So if you're running into something where it just doesn't seem to work, or like I was kind of talking about the planes manager, it would be nice if it showed the plane name in there so I could identify it. Any little stuff like that, we definitely want to see that. So here we're going to be done here in a second. And if I look at that toolpath, man, do I got some retracts going on. And the retracts are probably my fault here with some linking in there, but we go ahead and back plot this. It's stepping down, cutting as deep as it can, and it does full collision detection on your holder, so you don't have to worry about the holder coming in there and getting, you know, hit. With any of that. Looks like I got some major issues with my retracts. Usually retracts aren't that bad, but I must have missed a switch in there. I have to go back and fix that. Another situation here that we could get into is something like this. So maybe you know, this 3+2 auto is a good situation where if you just want to semi-rough out a part, where you really don't care about high detail, maybe you're going to come in with a different, you know, OptiRough or something to do the high detail, but maybe you just want to get it rolling in the machine, get something running to maybe semi-rough it out. What we could do here, and it's kind of cool, is I'm going to create a new level here. And if I go to my wireframe menu, I can go to bounding box, and I could click my part, and now what I can do is wrap. So I could get a wrap here, and then I could even go minimum volume. And maybe give me an extra, you know, give me 3 millimeters on that, so it'll poof it out a little bit. So now if I come in here and I create a solid or a polygonal mesh, I can green check in here. Now I got a mesh file on there. And now I can utilize this for my roughing op. So now I could come in here and I could pick that with this 3+2 automatic, and it'll come and it'll cut this part out from that wrapped feature. So that'd be another, you know, use for this is to do that. Make a wrap and then just let it go. You know, you don't have to worry about it undercutting anywhere or bad motion. It'll just go ahead and rough that out so it can be semi-roughed out while you're programming the more detailed parts of that part. So you won't have to wait until you're all done. You could get it rolling while you're programming. So just a couple ideas there with the 3+2 auto. Once again, 3+2 auto doesn't necessarily mean that auto is the best case. You do have the other options there as, you know, manual and, you know, semi-manual. So make sure you're checking it out. Try it out. See if it can be useful for your cases. So conclusion on 3+, you know, 3+2 automatic. You know, there's a lot of things that 3+2 can do that Opti cannot do. Knowledge of planes or interaction with planes manager is not necessary. Ability to use offset and parallel roughing parameters instead of just dynamic. So if you want to do another different scenario there, you can. Plane-to-plane linking moves are awesome, like I was kind of discussing there, of how it's getting back to the other planes. You know, using in conjunction with import-export makes this a powerful tool. It's quick and easy. Skill level programming can be reduced. You don't have to be a complete expert in Multiaxis to run this. Use of stock models is not, you know, critical, kind of like a stock or OptiRough can be. And, you know, enhanced functionality. You know, it can be used across almost all comparable functions compared to Opti. So it can be used in place of it, but I think in some cases you're better off to make planes and use Opti depending on the part and what you're kind of expecting to get. The bad, you know, is there anything I should watch out for? Physically large parts, you know, um, gauge length is smaller than the stock size, you know, and they're kind of working on some solutions here. And these are just something to be aware of. Plunging in some areas too small for the helical entries. So it's kind of plunging, so we kind of gotta watch out for that. That's reported. I don't quite know where it's at right now. It'd probably be fixed up here in the first patch. Air cuts, there's a lot more air cuts going on. It's not as good as Opti with air cuts, so you will have a little bit longer cycle times. Holder, checking against the avoidance section's not working. So like I said, this is a brand new tool path. There's going to be some little issues here and there that they need to adjust, and they are adjusting them. There's no arc filter, so you're going to get a lot of code. If you have newer machines, you know, maybe your machine can take care of it. Otherwise, you're going to have a lot of code. You know, and you know, it's not dynamic or Opti. Don't expect it to be. That's the main thing out of this. And you know, difficulty controlling a specific order of processes. You may be wanting to do it a certain way, and it's cutting over here and cutting over there. It's auto if you pick auto. So make sure you know your expectations and watch a few little bumps here in the road. And you know, here it is cutting in the machine. So it's not bad. You know, it is what it is. It's new. And a good thing to think about it like is the deburr toolpath. When it first came out, everybody thought, oh, it's automatic, it's going to work great. Well, that's not always the case. Deburr took a lot of work after it was launched to get it to where it's at now, where it's awesome right now. So just keep that in mind with this one. It's a work in art here, and it will be fixed up to what the end users really want. So. Check it out. Like I said, be aware of the few little issues that it does have. Not a lot. There's not a ton to be aware of or worried about, but there are some nuances there that are a little finicky. So check it out, and definitely let us know what you think. Next section we'll take a look at is multi-axis pocketing. This is a new toolpath in Mastercam's Multiaxis. This is formerly roughing, so you're not going to see roughing anymore. You're just going to see the pocketing option. And this is for walls, floors, and roughing. So let's go ahead and take a look at a file here, a couple files. This first file here is a very large round part that was spun in a lathe first. And we're going to mainly focus on just this section here. So let me turn that off. So these two pockets here on the end. Now this is a very large part. This is almost 600 millimeters in diameter and about 60 millimeters deep. So this is huge, huge part here. So let's go ahead and look at our toolpaths. I already have the toolpaths made. We're just going to look at the parameters since it does take a couple minutes to process these. So if we wanted to go and rough these two pockets out, let's go ahead and look at some parameters here. So I'm just going to grab a 35 millimeter bowl end mill. Stock, I'm using selected geometry, and what I'm selecting is just a turn slug off the lathe, so it can reference from there. Cut pattern. So cut pattern, we have our part surfaces, and pretty much I picked the whole part. In this case here, even though I don't want to machine the whole part, it's easier just to pick the whole part. And then I do need to define some floor surfaces. So I did define a floor surface. Now, what I did for that is I just created some surfaces on the bottom sides. Now, if you don't do this, you're going to get some different results and maybe jumping around from surface to surface. So to make this all into one revolving cut, if you build a surface on that floor all the way around and pick it, then it uses that information. It can give you a lot better cut there. So that's what I did there for that. As far as my pattern goes, you have roughing, floor finishing, and wall finishing. We're just talking about roughing here to start. Strategy, how are we getting our cuts? So it's offsetting from the floor, is this case. We could offset from the ceiling or the top of the pocket, or we could morph between the ceiling and the floor to kind of blend them two together to get our cut pattern. So in this case here, it's best to offset from floor. Our type is offset or dynamic is the style of cut that we see. So it's not our dynamic cut, but it's dynamic style motion that you're going to get. So it's better than nothing. It knows where the air is. It'll plunge out inside of air if there's air there, and it'll do its dynamic style of motion there. Cutting method, one way zigzag, and then these are just kind of the basics. Climb mill, conventional mill, and then levels or regions and is defining how we want to do our depth cuts. Our depth step, I'm just going to do a constant depth step of 30 millimeters, or I could do a number of slices. I'll go 12 millimeter for my maximum step over, and my cut tolerance is 0.05 millimeter, which is totally fine. Tool axis control, if you're doing certain functions in this new toolpath, it'll gray it out if you don't have it. We don't have it. And then collision control, this is the same page as everybody's used to using multi-axis toolpaths. It just allows you to put some clearance around your holders, your shanks, your tools. So I got them set to moderate, 1 millimeter, 0.5 millimeter, and 0.2 of a millimeter. So, and that's all we really have to do. All the other pages in here are your typical multi-axis pages. And if I regenerate this one, they usually do calculate pretty quick. I didn't really mean to regenerate. I just want to look at it, but I accidentally hit the green check. So we'll let it crunch here. And like I said, it's pretty quick here, so it won't be too bad. Like I said, this is a new toolpath, so you guys got any feedback on it, definitely let us know. We can get that into Mastercam so they can start looking at some stuff if anything needs to be changed there. I'll go ahead and put my part back on, and let's go ahead and take a look at this. So my tool comes in here. Nice entry into the cut, and it's going to start to dynamic out from there. It works its way all the way around, goes to the next pocket, works all the way around, next depth, and pretty quickly I have a nice tool path there roughing that out without a lot of thought in it. If I look at this part here, I will see one thing. Notice how my tool is pointed straight in, but I have an undercut here, and I have an undercut here, or pretty much on both sides of all them slots in there. We have an option to get them undercuts out of there. So right now it's not getting in that undercut, but if I come back in here, and I look at this toolpath number 5, and all I did was copy toolpath 1 down here. So it's exactly the same in here. With the one change in here is offset or dynamic. If I go to offset as my type, I now get undercuts option down here. So I can say, don't do undercuts, do all the undercuts with the cut, or machine only the undercuts. So my first tool path was a dynamic tool path. Better strategy to get a lot of material out of there. But now I just want to go back and do the undercuts. So I just go machine only. All the same settings here. Nothing has changed here. So now I can green check. And I'll regenerate this tool path. And once again, these crunch pretty fast. Takes just a little bit here. And now this cut will only cut the undercuts there for me. So I already have the whole pocket roughed out except for the undercuts. This will come and clean out the undercuts for me. It's kind of a good process here to get into, is dynamically cut out what you can and come back and just do the undercuts. And this tool path allows that. And once again, all I had to do was copy the tool path. I didn't have to go and redo the tool path. I just copy them, make subtle changes, and continue to move on. So that's kind of the nice thing about this tool path. Let's go ahead and take a look at this, and I'll kind of show you on these pockets here what this does. So it works in and then tilts to cut. goes to the next one. Now it's cutting the top one. So we'll come back to this one here. Comes back, the next cuts in, and you can see it tilting. So I'm moving it back and forth. You can see the motion that it tilts underneath there to get the undercut achieved. So it's a pretty cool little function in that tool path, would be the undercut options. Take a look at that when you're roughing. It's a pretty good one. Now I also have this part here. It's a little simplified part, but we're just going to talk about finishing with this part. So I already have this roughed. So if I look at my roughing tool path, it's the same setup that we just did. It's just roughing it out multi-axis like, and it worked out pretty good. If I look at my stock model here, and turn this one off, you know, it got me pretty good detail here. Not bad for a multi-axis pass. So once again, all I'm going to do is take toolpath number 1, copy it down. I'm just going to change some parameters. So if we want to finish the walls first, you know, grab a different tool. I'm going to go and grab an oval form. So here's where our oval forms, our barrel forms, our taper forms, our lens forms comes into play with toolpaths like this on a multi-axis machine. So we're going to use these tools. Stock, I don't need stock on when I'm finishing. It won't look at it, doesn't need it. My cut pattern, I'm going to flip my option to wall finishing, and it opens up some different options here. So I'm going to leave 0 on my part, 0 on the floors, and now I need to go and pick my wall surfaces. And I'm going to shift click. If I shift click, it grabs all of them, but I don't want the floor, so I uncheck the floor. 0 to leave there. And now we have some strategies. Morph between the ceiling and the floor or parallel. We're going to leave it just to see what we get here. Your cutting method is one way, or zigzag or spiral, or climb mill or conventional mill. I'm going to go 6 millimeters on my step over, and I'll change this to 0.05 millimeters. And here's where it changes. So this page here, the tool axes control page, we have a preferred contact point, a minimum contact point, a maximum contact point. And this is in cut length percentage. What I mean by this is set right now to a minimum of 40, a max of 60, and a preferred of 50. So if I go back and look at my tool, the tip of the tool is 0% of my cut surface. 100 would be the top of the yellow. So it's 0 and 100%. 50% would be cutting at the midpoint of that tool in between them two, okay? So if I come back in here, right now it's saying you can cut only between 40 and 60% on that tool, with a preferred of 50. So let's just see what we get here with this tool path, just the way it is stock, without changing anything on the tool axes page. And we got a cut along there, just not a great cut. So if I look at this, it's doing exactly what a morph should do, right? It's morphing the top ceiling to the bottom floor, and it's cutting, and you'll see that it starts to lose its mind here a little bit right there. And what happened was it cannot maintain a cut between 40 and 60. So what it did is had to trim the tool path back and relink it. And that's what you're seeing there. So you're seeing the drop down. It can't get to them percentages on that cut, on the cut of the flutes, so it can't do it. So it has to trim it back. So that's pretty crappy. That's no good. That's no good for anything. So if I come back in here, my cut pattern, instead of morph, I could go to parallel. So let's go ahead and take a look at parallel, see if that fixes this, the tool path at all. And it looks a lot better, right? But look at all this area down here. I'm not getting a cut down there at all. So if I watch this one run now, I'm getting a nice motion, right? Nice roll-ins. If I didn't want it to go retract back, I could turn off zigzag, or one way I could go to zigzag. But this ain't a bad cut. I'm just not achieving a cut all the way down to the bottom. Now, the reason for that is the tilt. So see how my tool's in there now? It needs to tilt that holder out of the way. Well, if it can't maintain these cut parameters that I give it in here, it won't do that. So if I put this at 90 for my max, and 10 for my minimum. And I'm just going to leave my preferred contact point the same. Now let's see what that'll do to my tool path. Now I get a cut almost all the way down. So let's go ahead and take a look at this one. Same cut, cutting around, very nice. So this is a pretty good tool path. I'm pretty happy with this. Just by changing a couple of them parameters to allow my tool to tilt. See, as soon as my tool gets in there, it needs to tilt with this holder. If it doesn't have enough room to tilt, it has to trim it back. It can't cut it. And now I'm getting a pretty nice cut along there, along the walls. Now you will see this here. If I stop this, you see how my step down changed? That's where that tool interference came from with the holder. So it had to start to tilt where it wasn't quite cutting on the same part of that tool. It might have been cutting on, a smaller diameter, so maybe 20%. And remember, my range was 10 to 90, so it could tilt all the way to 10 to 90 if it needed be. Now, one thing with this, we could mess with this one more time here, and I could go 0 and 100. So if I do this, this is something you probably do not want to do. But if you do this, you're going to get some varying results. Now I have this radius on the bottom picked. Now if I go to my front view, what I can do is I can show you what this will do. So if I work this all the way down, beautiful cut all the way down, and about as nice as you can get. And I'm almost down to the bottom here. So there, I was able to achieve a cut all the way to the bottom, but look where I'm cutting on the tool at 0. 0% is the bottom of the tool. These tools don't like to cut there. So I highly suggest not doing that, and I highly suggest going and just doing that radius with the ball end mill with a different tool path, more for parallel or something, to put that radius in the bottom. I would not try to run that all the way to the bottom because of the limitation of the tool that we're using in this case. You also notice this corner gets a little small, and see all the relinks it has in here. That is because the tool is too big. It's attempting to cut on both sides or two sides of the tool, and it will not do that. It rejects that, so it relinks it. So that's why we're getting that motion down there. So walls, easy to finish, and a lot of control. Now if I copy this tool path down once again, and now this time I'm going to just do the floor. And if I go to my tool, I got a lens form in here. So if I pop that up, I got this lens form here. So now 0 is here and 100's up here, but we don't want to utilize any of that side. So we really want to be cutting from probably 0 to 10% max. So when we come in here, everything's going to be the same, except I'm going to change this to floor finishing. Nothing needs to change here. I do have a couple strategies we'll look at, and we'll start with parallel. Now on the tool axis page, here's where this changes. So now my minimum, I'm saying I'm going to go to 0. My preferred, I'll go to 3%, and this I'll go to 10% max. So now I'm setting a range from 0 to 10% of my tool flutes at a 3% preferred. So if I go and regenerate this one now on this floor, now I got nice cuts. So if I come in here and if I go to my right view, now you'll see what it's doing. It's trying to prefer that 3% cut while it's going along here. It's just going to keep on maintaining that as it cuts through. So we get a nice cut. Now we're just cutting one way here. We're getting a nice tilt angle there. If I come back in here, I could change this to offset from the wall, so my pattern's going to change a little bit here. I regenerate this. And now this is going to be doing a lot more tilting because it has to move the different directions. So you'll see that it's still trying to maintain 3 degrees. If it can't, it will then utilize the 0 to 10 degrees that it can use that we told it to in the percentage columns there in the tool axis control. So try it out. It's a pretty cool tool path. Get your first one good and just copy and copy and copy and change your subtle changes, and it's very efficient to program with there. So definitely try them out and let us know what you think. Prototech training, our training facility is open. We are training full-time here, so make sure you check our websites for the upcoming training classes, and that is prototech-engineering.com. And then the 2021 installation documents. You know, this is all our PDF files that we have. Make sure that you're getting them from us. We have all the links in there, and that is at support@prototech-engineering.com. And always, as always, thanks for being a Mastercam customer. Thanks for being a Prototech customer. And any questions, definitely let us know.